Believe it or not all video games developers set out to create come out to be multi-million-dollar masterpieces, like Knack 2.
Knack 2, baby! This game is man. Just kidding, guys. Fuck you, Knack.
Alright, jokes aside, a lot of games are never released because of insufficient backing, funding, or a realization of effort steered in the wrong direction. Maybe a gun, or maybe a month before release you realize that your game looks gorgeous, but is actually, in fact, complete dog shit with absolutely nothing to do. Actually, now that I think about it, that guy just lied about his game. Forget it. Let's just get into the video. Welcome back to Top 5 Gaming, everyone, and prepare to get your heart broken by these games that will never be released. Also, be sure to comment some games that you were upset that weren't released down below, and we'll pin the best one. Number 5, StarNet Eclipse. You might not know this, but there was a time when the popular Call of Duty sniping clan, FaZe Clan, were affiliated with a video game. It was called StarNet Eclipse. A lot of you guys who are big fans of the channel and follow their stuff will likely remember very vaguely that they were going to create a video game at one point in time, and it was meant to be a futuristic first-person shooter. The game was supposedly going to be designed by the community for the community, and there was going to be no limits as to what the game could offer you as the individual. It had the mentality of being a first-person shooter, but it was more of a sandbox type game mode. So maybe you'd play serious matches, but you'd be able to do some stuff that you might be able to in games such as GTA or Gary's Mod. Considering the game never ended up being released, it's pretty clear that the limits of what it could offer was actually pretty limited. The small amount of pre-alpha gameplay we have from 2015 paints the picture of a game that feels very similar to the early Call of Duty games, boots on the ground with some pretty easy sniping and trick shotting. It was basically meant to be the Call of Duty game where the fans could choose everything that went into it, except none of that actually ended up happening. When FaZe got involved with the development of StarNet Eclipse, they set up a donation campaign to help generate funds for money, but they didn't raise anywhere near enough for the game to be completely made. That led to a lot of people claiming FaZe scammed the people that backed the game, which is a claim that the clan denied pretty much instantly.
Everyone who donated, I think Jefferson's hitting up every single person that donated anything. They're getting a shirt and other rewards, and that's it. Like, people are fucking acting like I'm scamming people. Like, what the fuck?
The last time any news on this game was made was way back in 2016, where they said they wanted a playable version to be released as a beta in 2017, and obviously that didn't happen. Considering no one has officially spoken about this game since, it's safe to say it's never going to be released, but they definitely didn't scam anyone. Number 4, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Patriots. Some games are just too ambitious to live, and unfortunately, that was the curse of Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Patriot. The game we all know as Rainbow Six Siege was originally going to be something incredibly different. Originally announced in December in 2011, Patriots was a game that had originally been designed to release on both old and new-gen consoles. The game followed the titular Team Rainbow, who had been called to New York City to deal with a terrorist group known as the True Patriots. The group of deranged terrorists had decided to become the judge, jury, and executioner on behalf of those who had been affected by what they saw as Wall Street corruption. After this early announcement, the game went through a series of dramatic shifts, and in 2012, many of the lead designers and creative directors had been removed from the development team, and by May 2013, GameStop had removed Patriots from their upcoming games database and had canceled all pre-orders for the title. But at E3 that year, Ubisoft confirmed that the game was still in development, although now it would only be on next-gen consoles such as the Xbox One and PS4 because the destructible map system they were using was too much for the older hardware to handle. Then there was pretty much complete silence on the news front for the game until June 9th, 2014, where it was finally announced that the Patriots concept had been completely replaced by Rainbow Six Siege. Number 3, Star Wars Battlefront 3. It's said that Battlefront fans went so long without a follow-up in the series, but it might have been for the best since Star Wars Battlefront 2015 was such a hit. I guess you could say one of the most disappointing games to come out over the last couple of years is Star Wars Battlefront 2. It was meant to be a sequel that built upon everything the first rebooted Battlefront game laid down, and instead they just turned into a money-grabbing, microtransaction-filled waste of time. And sure, they've managed to fix it up a bit now. There are some fun things in the game, don't get me wrong, but with huge changes to the progression system. But thinking about the newer Battlefront just kind of makes me wish that Star Wars Battlefront 3 was released after all. The game was in development between 2006 to 2008 by a studio called Free Radical, and was supposedly around 99% done by the time LucasArts told them to cancel the project. That's right, the game was literally 1% away from being released. To make matters worse, it seems like the only reason this pretty awesome looking, nearly completed Free Radical Battlefront 3 was canceled was because LucasArts were working on their own internally developed version of the game. But then LucasArts shut down its game division and the game was canceled after Disney acquired them. In the gameplay footage for Free Radical's Battlefront 3, there are times you see Republic cruisers, if reported are to believe all of the cruisers shown in the videos, are piloted by crews of real players, which means that this game was probably the most ambitious Star Wars game to ever be designed in terms of scale. So we're not gonna get to see it Rip Star Wars 3. You know, maybe it's for the best. Maybe it wasn't meant to happen. Speaking of sequels, just want to throw in a certain game relating to Knack.
Here comes the money.
Oh, it's just Knack, baby! Knack is back, baby! It's Knack!
Number 2, Call of Duty Vietnam, codenamed Call of Duty Fog of War. The fog is definitely rolling in on this one, boys.
What happens when fog rolls in?
For those of you who don't keep up with zombies memes in Call of Duty, you guys aren't really going to get that, but just know that the fog is rolling in. Not much ever changes when it comes to Call of Duty. Even when the game went too far to the future, there were certain things that stayed the same, mainly the fact that it was a first-person shooter. But what if I were to tell you, though, that once there was a Call of Duty game that wasn't a first-person shooter at all? It was a third-person shooter. Internally, the game was known as Fog of War, but nowadays, most of us know it as Call of Duty Vietnam. This was a third-person shooter developed by Sledgehammer Games, who have since gone on to release Advanced Warfare and World War II, which is obviously much more ambitious than their original game. Unlike any other Call of Duty game, unless you count the mode in MW2, this game was going to be a third-person shooter instead of a first-person shooter, and there really isn't much of a Vietnam out there other than a few pieces of concept art, but from what we do have, it could have been pretty cool. The game was canceled because of Infinity Ward, which is a strange thing to say when we're talking about a game designed by Sledgehammer, but at the time, Infinity Ward was going through some tough times, but Modern Warfare 3 still needed to be finished and released, so instead of being allowed to finish their interesting new Vietnam game, Sledgehammer were tasked with helping make it Modern Warfare 3 sale ready. In later interviews, Glenn Schofield said that if the studio was ever asked to make a third-person Call of Duty game in the future, that they would pick up development on Vietnam once more, but considering Schofield has now left Sledgehammer, it's safe to say that the game is probably dead and buried. Hey, there it is again. The zombies references anyway. And as for an honorable mention, we've got Fortnite Battle Royale. Okay, I have to admit this honorable mention is a bit of a reach, but just hear me out. Yes, Fortnite Battle Royale was released, and yes, it is now one of the most popular games on the planet, but it nearly didn't turn out that way. In fact, we're lucky the game even exists at all. When Fortnite, the original PvE Save the World Fortnite, first released, people were pretty underwhelmed by it. Like, they played it and enjoyed it for a little while, but it sort of just got boring pretty quickly. What changed the story of Fortnite completely was the release of Battle Royale. The fact Battle Royale exists at all is a miracle. Development for the mode started on July 25th, right after the main game was released, and then the mode was released on September 26th. Basically, the whole thing was made in 2 months, and the only reason it was possible was because loads of developers from different games were brought over from different Epic teams to make it happen. Originally, Battle Royale was going to be part of Save the World, an optional PvP mode that required you to purchase the base game for $40. It nearly didn't come out, and it could have been a buggy mess, but instead it's now one of the most popular games of the past couple of years. Number 1, Overwatch Titan. The only reason Overwatch is so successful is because of a game that came before it, a game called Titan. Titan was supposedly going to be a massive MMO that was designed from the ground up to be a similar experience to World of Warcraft. The exact details about the game are pretty sketchy, but Jeff Kaplan said that it was sort of a class-based shooter game that was also an MMO set on a sci-fi version of Earth. According to interviews with Kotaku, developers had said that players would fight off enemies in the night but work a normal and mundane job in the day. Sounds kind of confusing and a little dull, to be honest, but Kaplan agreed, and that confusion is probably why the game was canceled entirely, but like a phoenix, Overwatch rose from the ashes, using multiple developed assets from that game and around 40 developers from the original Titan team. I'm really glad that they scrapped it, though, because, well, Overwatch is a masterpiece, let's be honest here. Wait, did somebody just say masterpiece?
I give Knack 2 my first ever 10 out of 5, and that's just for the graphics alone, okay? Don't even get me started on the storyline.
But that's going to do it for the video. This has been our list of the top 5 video games that were never released. If you guys have enjoyed, make sure to drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and also don't forget to leave that comment of some games that you're upset that were never released in the comments, and we might just pin your comment. Or maybe you'll be featured in a future video. Have a great day though, guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.